Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition and V edition versus the 2D the Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, let's just say the Dungeons and Dragons V edition. The 2024 core rules player's handbook is out. I am now officially playing Dungeons and Dragons V edition. That is the new non-incremental edition, right? So we haven't moved to 5.5. We haven't moved to 6.0. We've gone from 5e to VE. VE is the Roman numeral for 5. So I think that's the best way to deal with this edition question. We're not, it was D&D 1e, 2e, 3e, 4e, 5e, VE, because we have not moved to 5.5 and we have not moved to 6.0. So I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons VE versus Modiphius 2D20. Okay, and today I want to talk about IP, intellectual property settings. Okay, and who does it better, Dungeons and Dragons or Modiphius? Okay, and so right now I am running a Star Trek Adventures campaign, Warp Onyx. You'll get details about that right here on this channel. Google, Scott Garibay and Warp Onyx, and actually you can see the notes and everything we're doing for our campaign. And I'll have breakdowns my plan is to do breakdowns just like I did for the entire adventure of Arbor Adventures. So basically, I want to talk about running a game in an intellectual property world when there is an existing system that has books at scale for that. So right now, let's do it. Are you better off running Dungeons and Dragons? Are you better off running Star Trek with Dungeons and Dragons VE, or are you better off running it with Dungeons and Dragons Modiphius 2D20? Okay. Now, first of all, if there's an intellectual property that does not have a tabletop role-playing game system, then this is a no-brainer, right? So first of all, Dungeons and Dragons VE, at a perfect example is Disney Lorcana. Fantastic tabletop collectible card game with a beautiful story that includes tons of fantastic intellectual property for Disney, right? Now, I have run a Disney Lorcana campaign, right? And actually, you can find breakdowns of those campaigns right here on this channel, right? And the great thing is there's no tabletop role-playing game in the world where you can use to run Stitch versus Stitch versus Captain Hook, Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, actually to run Lilo and Stitch against Captain Hook, right? But Lorcana does that all the time, and that's native to that narrative, right? I was in a band called Narrative Native. So basically you go, so basically, Dungeons and Dragons has got you covered there, But right now, if you want to run Star Trek Adventure, if you want to run Star Trek stories, should you use Dungeons and Dragons VE or should you use Modiphius 2D20 with their no less than 3 dozen books that have fully slated out the Star Trek world? Well, I'm going to tell you, I think you're better off running it with Modiphius 2D20. And the reason why is I'm doing that right now. I'm running it with Modiphius 2D20, and it is truly spectacular. And one of the reasons why is the company has invested a ton. Modiphius has invested a huge amount of time and effort into the system. Now, the biggest issue is, well, couldn't you just stat everything out for, with Dungeons and Dragons? You absolutely can, but it's going to be a significant amount of work, right? And the reality is Modiphius has already done this work, and it is very real. And one of the things that you would not get from running with Dungeons and Dragons is the rule set is custom fit to Star Trek, right? So like the difficulty check says that you use your attributes and your Starfleet training, and literally every difficulty check in the entire game rolls through Starfleet Academy training, right? The structure of that, right? It also deals with the values, and I have to say, because they've spent time and effort, it is a better experience to rely on the work that Modiphius has done than doing it yourself through Dungeons and Dragons. Because the reality is, this has been tested with playtesters, right? And so now I'm not saying that I honestly think, like for instance, so I'm not signing off that any licensed game is better than Dungeons and Dragons. What has Modiphius done to defeat Dungeons and Dragons in the intellectual property game? Well, first of all, they have dedicated their company to creating very good, very sound, very real tabletop role-playing game content for Star Trek, right? Any company could have done that, right? They could have made that choice. Modiphius executed it extremely well. They actually did a phenomenal job. And how did they do a good job with this? They really showed respect and care for the source material, right? And then here's the other reason why Dungeons & Dragons is not a better fit for this. And that is Dungeons & Dragons has left the world one little corner to play in, right? If you want to make a fantasy tabletop role-playing game, forget it. You're going to lose. You're going to get absolutely crushed, right? You're going to get virtually stomped. And the reason why is D&D don't give that ground. They just don't allow it, right? Also, if there is no existing tabletop role-playing game with real employees at scale, pay their taxes, for realsies business that has made a tabletop role-playing game for a system, then again, you are going to get defeated by Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons has a better system, and it has more buy-in from the rest of the world, right? But the reality is, if you are a company that takes the source material extremely seriously, you are at scale and you can print books, you are at scale, you actually do playtesting and you have good art, right? Then I actually think Dungeons & Dragons can be beat on intellectual property. On intellectual property tabletop role-playing experiences. And the reason why is they have seeded this ground and they are not getting into this game, right? Now, there are a few places where they've done it. Stranger Things, right? They've done it there. And with where else? Oh, Rick and Morty, which I just like, why did these things jump the line, right? And I will say, I really wish Dungeons & Dragons would open it up and begin to make licensed product again, exactly the way they did with Star Wars when they owned the Star Wars license, right? The other thing is, like, if you want to run Marvel and DC, right now, you are far better off with Matt Forbeck's Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. So I love Dungeons & Dragons, but I do want to be transparent. I am currently running Dungeons & Dragons. I'm currently running Star Trek Adventures with Modiphius 2D20, and it is phenomenal. It is truly a tabletop role-playing experience, not just a game, right? And I really, really like it. And I honestly think if you want to play in a world where a company at scale who actually has a real business, not some jank, out of your, not some crufty thing on drive-through RBD, and the guy's very diligently packing his material together, out of his garage, right? And that is most tabletop role-playing games, let's be honest. But a real company at scale with real employees, and they actually have real, genuine love for the source material, that can beat Dungeons & Dragons. I think it's about the one corner of the world where it can be done right now. Now, I will say this does get interesting when you start to deal with the tabletop role-playing worlds, with the worlds that Dungeons, like for instance, what would you run Lego Cities with? Dungeons & Dragons is going to be best with that, right? because they literally have a relationship with Lego, right? So, and there's a lot of other, and the other one is like, everything in Fortnite and everything in, everything under Funko Pop, all these, right? Many of these do not have existing competitors building out dozens of books that are actually specific to the world, right? So I still think Dungeons & Dragons is a better option for intellectual properties that have not had a for realsies tabletop role-playing game system built for them by a company that is an actual real company, and headquarters and all, right? And also actually loves the source material, right? Like for instance, I would say this just right now. You know what? I don't think I have enough experience with it to say that. I'm betting that the Avatar: Last Airbender Magpie games is pretty bad, but I don't have the receipts for that yet. So I'm just guessing that's the case. And I honestly think it's terrible that a huge intellectual property like that has to deal with a super fluffy narrative system like that. That should definitely be under a better system, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennial.